You're sitting in a therapist's office. She leans forward and says, "Have you tried just thinking positive thoughts?" You nod. You've tried. You've tried so hard that you've started to hate yourself for not being able to think positively enough. And that's when you realize something has gone very wrong. Positive thinking isn't what you think it is. In fact, what we call positive thinking in 2024 isn't positive at all. It's a trap designed by psychology researchers who never had to live inside your actual brain. The story begins in 1987. A psychologist named Barbara Fredrickson published research showing that positive emotions broaden your cognitive capacity. Suddenly, universities funded her work. Self-help authors weaponized it. Corporate human resources departments built entire cultures around it. And within a decade, positive thinking became mandatory. Not suggested, required. You had to think your way into happiness or you were broken. But here's what nobody told you. Fredrickson's research was measuring momentary emotional states, not lifestyle philosophy. There's a chasm between smiling can temporarily expand your attention, and you should suppress all negative emotions to achieve success. We collapsed that chasm and built a religion on top of it. The mechanism is elegant and brutal. When you're told that positive thinking creates positive outcomes, two things happen simultaneously. First, you start monitoring your thoughts like a hawk. Every negative thought becomes evidence of your failure. Second, when things go wrong, when they will go wrong because you're alive, you blame yourself for not thinking positively enough. You've outsourced your locus of control to your own mind. You've become responsible for reality itself. A woman in her 30s gets laid off from a job she loved. She did everything right. She showed up early. She delivered results. But the economy shifted. Markets corrected. Her department was cut. According to positive thinking doctrine, she failed because she didn't visualize abundance hard enough. So she spirals. Not just into grief about the job and into shame that she couldn't think well enough to prevent it. The real problem has now been buried under a secondary problem. Self-hatred masquerading as self-improvement. This is what existentialists understood that pop psychologists didn't. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote about bad faith, the act of lying to yourself about your own freedom and responsibility. Positive thinking, weaponized as it is today, is pure bad faith. You're pretending that your mind has more power than it does. You're pretending that you can think your way around genuine loss, genuine limitation, genuine death, and the statistics back this up. Studies from 2019 onward show that toxic positivity, the refusal to acknowledge difficulty, correlates with depression, not away from it. When you can't admit that things are hard, you can't ask for help. When you can't ask for help, you're alone. When you're alone with a problem you're told is solvable through thoughts alone, you experience yourself as fundamentally defective. But here's where it gets darker. Positive thinking actually works. Not the way we think it works, but it works. A 2018 meta-analysis from Stanford showed that visualization and affirmation can increase performance in specific domains: athletics, public speaking, test taking. But the mechanism isn't magic. It's not that you thought your way into a better reality. What happened is you reduced anticipatory anxiety enough to access your existing skill set. You didn't create the ability, you removed the static. And the cost of that removal is that you start believing you can think away anything, including things that actually require action, grief, mourning, or acceptance. So you've got two populations now. One population uses positive thinking correctly as a tactical tool for reducing performance anxiety in specific contexts. They visualize before a presentation, they affirm before a meeting. Then they stop. Then they move on. The other population, the one you might be in, uses positive thinking as an identity. You become a positive person. And being a positive person means never admitting doubt. Never saying, "I'm scared." Saintin. Never sitting with your own despair long enough to understand what it's telling you. Because despair, when you actually listen to it, is often intelligent. It's often diagnostic. A man realizes he hates his career. This is crucial information. It's his nervous system telling him that something is misaligned. He should listen. He should grieve the version of himself that wanted this thing. He should sit in the disappointment long enough to understand what he actually values. But positive thinking doesn't allow this. Positive thinking says you don't hate your career, you hate your mindset about your career, change your thoughts and you'll love it. So he changes his thoughts. And he spends the next 5 years in a career he hates, but now with the added layer of shame that he can't even think positively enough to enjoy it. This is the trap. This is why the existentialists were right about something that self-help got catastrophically wrong. Existentialism says you are free. You are radically, terrifyingly free. And that freedom comes with radical responsibility. You can't think your way out of that. You can only acknowledge it. You can only accept that your life is yours to design, which means you might design it wrong. You might make mistakes, you might grieve, you might fail. And none of that is a thought problem. Albert Camus called this the absurd. Life is fundamentally meaningless. There are no guaranteed happy endings. There are no cosmic forces protecting you. And the only reasonable response to the absurd is not to think positively about it, but to accept it and create meaning anyway. Not because you believe in the meaning, but because creating meaning is what humans do. This is radical acceptance. And it's the exact inverse of positive thinking. Radical acceptance says, yes, you might lose your job. Yes, you might lose people you love. Yes, you might die without finishing what you started. And I can live with that. Not because I'm thinking happy thoughts, but because I'm choosing to live anyway. Here's the hidden mechanism that changes everything. When you accept the worst, you stop being terrorized by the possibility of it. When you stop being terrorized, you can actually move. You can actually build. You can actually try. The man who's accepted that his career might fail can take real risks. The woman who's accepted that her marriage might end can actually show up to it. The person who's accepted that they might die can actually live. Positive thinking keeps you frozen in the fear of negative thoughts. Radical acceptance moves you past the fear into action. But there is a trap here too. Radical acceptance can become nihilism. It can become an excuse for inaction. Nothing matters, so why try? Witty. That's not acceptance. That's despair, wearing acceptance's clothes. The real path lives between them. It's what you might call tragic optimism, holding two contradictory truths simultaneously. Yes, I could fail. And yes, I'm going to try. Yes, I might lose everything. And yes, I'm still building. Yes, I'm going to die. And yes, I'm going to live now. This is not something you think. This is something you practice every day. When you feel the impulse to suppress a negative thought, you pause. You notice it instead. You say, there's that thought. It's real. I'm scared. And then you ask yourself, what do I actually want to do right now? Not, how do I think positively enough to want to do it? But given that I'm scared, what does my actual desire tell me? This is where ambitious people get stuck. You've been told your whole life that your mind is your greatest asset. And it is, but your mind is also the thing most likely to imprison you if you give it too much power. Your mind can rationalize anything. It can justify any amount of self-abandonment in the name of positivity. It can convince you that you're growing when you're actually just compressing. The existentialists knew this. They knew that thought can be a trap. They knew that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is feel something fully, let it be what it is, and then choose anyway. So here's what you're actually supposed to do. You don't reject positive thinking entirely, you use it tactically. Before the big meeting, yes, visualize success. But visualize the real meeting, not a fantasy. After the meeting, put it away. You practice noticing your thoughts without judgment. Fear comes, let it come. Sadness comes, let it come. And underneath all of that, underneath all the noise of the mind, you're still here. You're still choosing. You're still alive. This is the dark side of positive thinking, and it's dark precisely because we've been taught that brightness is safety. We've been taught that a positive mind is a successful mind. But success built on suppressed fear is fragile. It's one bad thought away from collapse. Real success, the kind that lasts, the kind that can hold weight, is built on acceptance, on the unglamorous practice of feeling everything and moving anyway. The trap isn't that positive thinking doesn't work. The trap is that we've mistaken it for wisdom when it's just a technique. And techniques, when mistaken for truth, become chains. Your thoughts are not your destiny, your acceptance is. Remember. Think more deeply, live more intentionally, repeat the process for a lifetime of growth. Because personal transformation doesn't happen through a single insight, it happens through continuous reflection, conscious action, and the courage to keep learning what it means to be human. If you're seeking wisdom, inner growth, emotional resilience, and practical tools for living a more examined and meaningful life, you're in the right place. Think deeply. Live wisely, repeat endlessly.